Hey guys, welcome to Sexopedia. I'm Sarah Gibson. Today we're honored to have a very special guest with us, Davecat. Davecat is a renowned idolater who has appeared in many sex doll documentaries, including the critically acclaimed Silicon Show. He is known for his unique and profound relationship with his doll wife, Sidore, as well as his two other dolls, Elena and Snowy. Together, they form a close-knit and loving family. Davecat is a passionate advocate for the sex doll and idolater communities, continuously supporting and uplifting these often misunderstood groups. Join us as we dive into Davecat's fascinating world and hear his insights and experiences. Welcome, Davecat.
Hello, how is it going?
It's great. It's great. Well, would you mind tell us something about you? What's going on in your life?
Well, Emily, we have actually just relocated. Actually, it should back up a wee bit. There's actually a total of six of us here now. There is myself, Sidore Koroneko, who's my wife. There is Elena Vostrikova, who is the mistress that Sidore and I share. There is Snowy, who is technically Miss Winter, and that's not even her real name. She hates her legal name, so she goes by Miss Winter. And then we also have Diane Bailey, who joined us in 2018. And then we have Ursula Clark, who joined us in 2021. So yeah, it kind of works out that we moved literally like last December. We have a lot more space to accommodate people without bumping into each other. It's nicer.
It sounds like you're living your life and having such good time with your dolls and your waifus. Well, how did you like first get to know sex dolls? Because I think they're not very common, right?
They are getting more common these days.
Yes.
So like basically I've always had a fascination with artificial humans, particularly artificial women.
Hmm.
This would have been like years ago, like back in the 80s, essentially. And my best friend actually had introduced me to the Abyss Creations website. Abyss Creations, of course, being the company that makes real dolls, back in 1998. Basically, it was a case of, oh, wow, this is incredible. This is everything I've always wanted. And they're $5,000. I don't have that kind of money because this is back in 1998, and I think I had a job that like paid maybe five, six, $7 an hour or something like that. So long
Yeah,
story, long
right.
story
That's a
short,
lot.
yeah, it was a lot, and it's just like it's just a lot to go through. But yeah, it was absolutely worth it because I saved up for a year and a half to bring my wife home. That's amazing, and it's like people knowing about dolls. And for another thing, I don't refer to dolls as like love dolls or sex dolls because I think that's really limiting because it just kind of puts them in a category as this is something you have sex with or this is something that you love. I just call them dolls or companion dolls. So,
Mhm.
but it kind of comes and goes. There was like a wave again, like in the early 2000s, where people like, oh, what are these real dolls? They're everywhere. And, it kind of faded out. Now, I want to say the most recent wave, the biggest wave, has occurred probably within the past 5 years with like so many companies out of China just making so many various types of dolls. I used to basically cover the sort of thing on my blog, Shouting to Hear the Echoes, which still
Mhm.
exists. And once a month, I would like try to like do something about like any synthetic related news, Davecat, where I'd like talk about dolls or gynoids or things of that nature. And it just got to be a concept where it's just like there's so many companies I can't keep up with them. So it's a huge burgeoning industry, and I think it's snowballing again. I think it may hit a dip where it's just like it slows down, but it's the lightning is in the bottle and the genie is out of the bottle. It's not dolls are not going away, which is awesome.
Yes. Well, it's really I mean back in the days when probably 1998 somewhere around that you don't often see dolls and you would never expect them being on like a advertisement or whatever, but now they're just everywhere.
Yes.
And yes, and I love this energy that people are gradually destigmatizing these like dolls and companion dolls because it's
Mhm.
more than that. As you said, you can actually develop a relationship with the doll. And like I'm wondering what made you fall in love and become interested in dolls? Because is it like a love at first sight or you spend some time with her?
It was well, when her crate first arrived at the townhouse I was living in back in 2000, it was a case of like, it's like I tell people, it's like seeing pictures of dolls is one thing, but actually seeing them in person is entirely different. Basically, it was a case of like, I was saving up thinking, okay, this is something I'm gonna get. And I don't have a girlfriend at the time, and it's going to take me a while to get one. And it may happen, it may not happen, but at the very least, I have my needs taken care of, quote unquote.
Mhm.
And so, initially it was like maybe 60 to 70% like sex, and then 30 to 20%, companionship.
Yeah.
But literally, it was a case of like, Sidore was here, like, well, she'd moved in, and after 6 weeks' time, it was just a case of like, oh no, well, sex is great, but it's so wonderful to have her here as a companion and a lover and a friend and someone to talk to and someone to listen, blah blah blah. When she first moved in with me, I was actually living with a friend. So it was a case of like, he had actually said, I hope you don't buy a doll. And he actually gave me $1. So it's actually kind of hilarious. But it's a case of like, for one, I don't feel a pressure to find an organic girlfriend because it's just a case of like, again, I've always had an attraction towards artificial women, and it's just like, I mean, until they actually make like walking, talking gynoids and androids, that sort of thing, it's just like dolls are perfect. I mean, I've always said that like dolls are, if you allow them, if you have enough of an imagination to let them, they can be blank notebooks. They can be empty canvases where you can like basically give them all sorts of personality if you like, or backstory. All of my partners and companions have extensive backstories and histories. Um
Yeah. Right. I read those like stories you created for Sidore, Snowy, and Elena. I must say it's
Mhm.
very impressive. It's like J.R.R. Tolkien. Like you're writing the yeah, you're writing the whole history for them. And how did you manage to do that? Like it's so comprehensive really to where they are born and like where their parents come from, something like that. How did you manage to do
Mhm.
that?
Is just I've always like been interested in writing fiction, and I
Mm-hmm.
consider myself kind of a failed writer because it's just like after a point I was just like, I write something and it's like, oh, this is great, and then I look at it months later going, no, this isn't great at all. So when Shidore entered my life, it was just another way to basically like create a fictional character, but that one that exists in a three-dimensional space.
Mm-hmm.
And since one of the things I like do as a hobby, quote unquote, is like a lot of research, I'm one of those weirdos who will like sit on Wikipedia, like going from page to page, wiki hopping from one subject to the other. It was just like, all right, so I've always had an interest in Japanese culture, and I've always had an interest in the culture of the United Kingdom. So Shidore is half Japanese, half English. There we go. There's that. Okay, so where was she born? She was born in Asakusa, which is a district of Tokyo, and her mother is English and her father's Japanese. And then they moved to Manchester, England, and she learned how to play bass because I like bass guitar. And one of her favorite bands is Joy Division, which happens to be mine. So it's like an instance of like, okay, how can I take these things that I'm researching and like combine them into, my wife really, or any of my partners. With each one of my dolls, there's like some aspect of my own personality that I put into them. Again, she's basically a goth, as am I. Um, Snowy's really big into music. Diane loves film. Elena, Elena's kind of funny because I know nothing about Russia, so
Yeah.
gives me the opportunity to like kind of look into the culture and that sort of thing. But she loves the Soviet space program, and I have a fascination with that. So
Hmm.
there's always this little part of my personality that is like kind of like a coat hook to like hang the rest of their personality and then build off of that. And it's fun too, because it's just like to this day, I'm still learning things about them. I mean, I want to say I learned from Shidore last year that like she has an uncle that, he says he used to be in the Yakuza, but the general impression is that he just wants people to think he was in the Yakuza. He's kind of just a schmuck in real life. He owes people money.
Oh
So
yeah. No. No.
and it's just fun, you just be able to like take an empty canvas or a blank canvas or whatever and just like
Hmm.
fill them with all these ideas of like the idealized partner, the idealized girlfriend, wife, mistress, whatever. It's a way to express creativity, which I honestly don't think is being done enough these days.
Yeah, I think it's really similar to writing a novel because in the very beginning you create a character for someone. And then later on when you're writing, you just this character has life and he or she started to make her own decision, telling her own stories. I think it's more like this. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and how would you like, because you have Sidore, Elena Snowy, and also Diana, some,
Mhm.
other dolls. How would you manage to like keep this relationship with all of them? Because it's a bit like about energy management when it comes to like six of them,
Oh
right?
yes, it's absolutely mental. It's that's why one of these days I'm gonna have like one of those like flow charts that you sometimes see in like manga or whatever, where it's like this person likes that person is in relationship with this
Yeah.
person because it's complex.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, Shidore is my wife. Elena is the mistress that she and I share.
Yeah.
Miss Winter is Elena's dedicated girlfriend,
Hmm.
and Shidore and I are not romantically involved with Miss Winter because
Hmm.
of it's yeah. Realistically speaking, I basically want to keep her joints as posable as possible, and of course, the more you play with a doll, the looser your joints get. So
Yeah.
Elena, actually, sorry, Miss Winter and Ursula actually are childhood friends. They both grew up in the same town in Canada, as a matter of fact. And they used to be in a romantic relationship, but now they're not because it would also be really weird because Elena is not in a romantic relationship with Ursula. Diane is basically everyone's girlfriend. And she actually was born like about 2 miles away from where we're at now. And she moved in with us because the rent was too high at the apartment she was at. But yeah, it is a lot of energy management. It's back when we were all on Twitter. I mean, we all each had like Twitter accounts. And it's just like realistically
Jesus
speaking,
Christ.
I know, right?
I mean, how did you manage to do that? Like so many things at a
It's
time.
realistically speaking, basically it was a case of, well, Snowy was tweeting for a while, but then she
Yeah.
lost her password.
Oh,
So,
gotcha.
and then when Ursula basically moved in, it was a case of like you can only have so many Twitter accounts, like under one
Mhm.
login or whatever. So it's just like Elena and Snowy combined theirs into a single Twitter account, and Elena was just like, you know what? I don't really know enough English to like want to maintain a Twitter account, and Snowy was just like, yeah, let's just kill it. So it was just a case of like, thank Christ. It is.
All
I mean,
right.
other people have done it more
Mhm.
successfully, but it's a lot of time and effort and work, and it's just like
Yeah.
there's stuff that you want to put out into the world as like works of fiction, and then there's other stuff where it's just like, does that need to go out? What's that really doing? Sometimes it's easier just to write stuff down and not share it with the world as opposed to like, oh, I gotta tweet every single thing they say.
Yeah, I guess that's just like fascinating, but also a lot of work for you. But it's also like a journey of, making them more like closer to real life sometimes because if like they're the characters, they have their own like words to express and things like that. I guess yes, way to
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just curious because you just mentioned like for Miss Winter, like she's not romantically involved with you guys. Am I,
That
yeah,
is correct.
picking
Yes,
it up? Right. All right. Okay, I'm
yes.
getting this. And right. So do you have like sex with all of them or just with Sidore and Elena?
Shidore, Elena, and Ursula.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now actually I might as well add Diane to the list because the thing is I just got a new body for her birthday this past April.
Yeah.
Diane's Mark One body was TPE. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you being in the doll business, you know about
Yeah.
thermoplastic elastomer. And yeah, I think what is it? She came into our lives in 2016. TPE then was not as good as it is now,
Mm-hmm.
and had the only experiences I'd had prior to having Diane move in with us was with silicone, whether it was like tin-based silicone or platinum silicone. So to me, TPE was really weird feeling,
Yeah. I
and a little
know.
odd, yeah, a little odd tasting too.
Right.
So
Sometimes it gets sticky, things like that.
yes, and
Hmm.
like repairs are weird, like where you have to like actually get in there with like a hot tool. It's just like I don't know if I have
Yeah,
I
you gotta melt it first and then, put up
yeah,
everything, right?
it's a little weird. So basically, I like I said for her, I think 37th birthday. I can't remember how old she is. She's gonna.
Jesus Christ. You don't gotta say women's age in front of camera. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say she'll probably like punch me in the kidneys like at some point, like over the course of
Yeah.
the evening. So, yeah, she's older. Let's just say, but
Okay.
younger than me,
Yeah.
but older than some people. At any rate, I got her a new body for her birthday, which is silicone, and
Hmm.
now we're back to being romantically involved again. So, like I said, she's the house girlfriend. So. But
Right.
Miss Winter, yeah, as you'd said, yeah, none of us are. Elena is romantic and intimate with her, but the rest of us aren't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I thought like Ursula is like Elena or Sidore's childhood girlfriend, is it? Childhood
Uh,
friend?
Ursula is Miss Winter's childhood friend. Yeah.
Oh, that's why. I was like, okay, if she's Sidore or Elena's childhood friend, wouldn't she get jealous? Wouldn't like right. Do they
Yeah.
have do they have this jealousy issues when, sometimes you may have to have sex with other dolls?
It's let's just say this. Basically, when Elena first moved in with us, it was a
Mm-hmm.
case of she saw Sidore and I on a documentary called Guys and Dolls, which came out in 2005 or 2006 through the BBC. Pretty good documentary, but it was filmed at a weird point in my life when I had to move back in with my parents, so it was really embarrassing. Um, but basically, Elena was miserable living in Vladivostok, and
Yeah.
she wasn't happy at all. So she just, after seeing like the
Mm-hmm.
missus and I, she was just like, you know what? I'm gonna move to the United States, and she did. And it turns out that she thought she had a crush on me, but she had instead a crush on Chidore.
Oh,
So it was a whole thing. Literally for a couple of months, it was a case of, she basically was flirting and whatnot and having fun with my wife. And I'd be like, okay, this is a little
okay.
awkward.
Yeah.
And Shidore actually had to take Elena aside and say, you know what, this isn't going to continue under my roof.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to work out a system. So that's basically where Elena became the mistress, as opposed
Gotcha.
to, and I am only ever going to have one wife. We both have matching wedding bands, and I'm not into harems or like bigamy. So
That's
that's how it
so
is.
sweet. And like, how has your marriage with dolls evolved over the years? How's things been going with Sidere? Do you guys also have those stages, when you really can't get your hands off each other till, sometimes things flatten out. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, there's not so many valleys. There's a lot of, I don't want to say there's a lot of peaks, but there are instances where it's just like, Elena or Ursula will be spending like, a couple of weeks in bed. We actually now have a larger bed that can accommodate three people, which is nice, but that ends up meaning that I sleep like on either on the corner of the bed, or about to fall off and land on the floor. But there's times where it's just like, Elena or Ursula will be in bed for like, 2 weeks or whatnot. And then she'd always like, okay, my turn. So,
Yeah.
and it's very invigorating. It's just like we're seeing each other again for the first time. It's just like the
Okay.
flame, not to be corny about it, but the flame that we have that is our love, like has never died. That sounds really corny, and I do apologize for that, but that's what it is.
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, I totally
But
understand.
it's a whole
Mm.
thing where it's just like, yeah, I mean, you do have to like, I mean, again, it's like what you said, it's energy management. It's just like,
Right.
realistically speaking, I was thinking, man, that'd be great to have $2 in bed. And then, the reality is that it's just like, I mean, they don't move, you know?
Right. Right. It's a lot of work when you're carrying them around. It's like,
Yes.
well, sometimes I'm just like curious because I totally understand. I'm 100% into like creating characters for them and interacting with them mentally. But sometimes it just, as a matter of fact, they cannot move. And so this lack of physical interaction, would it impact your life with the dolls?
It's, well, within the past, like, I mean, I've been basically an idolater for over 20 years, well,
Hmm.
since 2000. But I always, and especially within the past 10 years, I always say that I'm a robosexual first and an idolater second.
Yeah.
Um, I love dolls. I absolutely love all of my dolls. I love dolls in general, unless they're really ugly. Uh, horrible. But if there were an opportunity for a company to say, Davecat, we would like to actually build you a walking, talking gynoid, a humanoid robot that looks exactly like an organic human woman, I'd be like, okay, let's get this started. Because that's the thing that a gynoid would have over a doll. I mean, a gynoid I would be able to go places with. I'd be able to
Hmm.
literally do things with, as opposed to just saying I'm doing something with. We'd be able to like go to cat cafes or the park, or to see a concert or whatever. So
Yeah, going on a date and have some romantic nights.
yeah,
Right. Right.
I mean,
I apologize. It's just like I think the camera is doing something. It just rose his eyes to you. I'm sorry. That was intentional and that wasn't
oh my
me.
God,
It's,
I did say
yeah.
it. No,
It's
that's
okay.
absolutely
Well,
fine.
keep going.
Yes.
Um,
But yeah,
right.
it's the whole thing of like it's and that's the thing too. I mean, part of the reason why Sidore and I and everyone else here, when they're bothered to like actually be synthetic activists, is the whole thing of getting people used to the concept of synthetic partners.
Yeah.
And in maybe a couple of decades, realistically, is probably going to be several decades time, we will see gynoids and androids, and we will have people who are attracted to them, or maybe just want them as friends or companions, or maybe all three or more. But
Right.
we do what we do basically to try to get people used to the concept of people, organic people such as myself and yourself, like being in love with synthetic people such as Shidore and everyone else. So if we get people used to the idea now, then 40, 50 years down the line, it won't be so unusual.
Right. Right. And um